Hi, thank you for your question. So I've actually detransitioned and retransitioned more than once. And seeing as how I'm 33 years old, I've already detransitioned twice, and I'm a hypochondriac, so I always do them lifespan calculators, and they say I'll live till like in my 80s. Chances are I'll detransition eventually again. And a lot of people are afraid to say that. They don't want to talk about anything, having to do with detransitioning, retransitioning, because then it gives those people who have hateful rhetoric towards us that, see, it's just a phase. It's just a phase. But there are a lot of legitimate reasons that people detransition. And I think there's a lot more stories like mine than there are those who just make a decision, stick to it, never question it. Our society is not trans friendly, which means the workforce is not always trans friendly. Families in the US are not always trans friendly. Towns you grew up in, schools you went to, they're not always trans friendly. So there are a lot of legitimate reasons that people make the decision to detransition. And here are mine. So this is me when I was 16 or 17. I call this my first attempt at transitioning, and the reason I say that is because I didn't have access to medically transition. It was all socially. And even then, most people just thought I was a masculine lesbian. I ran with it because, hey, I could present how I wanted. I got mistaken for a dude a lot, and it felt really good. By the time I graduated high school, I had already, detransitioned, I guess, or just presented feminine again. And a lot of why I detransitioned this time had to do with religion. I struggled immensely, and I still do sometimes with religion, throughout questioning my identity and, transitioning, retransitioning, detransitioning, whatever. My parents never, disowned me or anything, but I did grow up Irish Catholic. And a lot of Catholics, equate being not even just trans, but being, gay, lesbian, whatever, as, a perversion. And so I just remember feeling very, just dirty about this. It was just horrible for my mental health. It was awful. But yeah, I was just not having a good time mental health-wise. I was really struggling with my identity, and trigger warning, I'm going to start going into some really sensitive topics. I'll give you 5 seconds to leave. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, we're going to continue. I ended up developing a really bad eating disorder, and now as I've gotten through recovery and everything, I know that a lot of it had to do with control. I felt like I didn't have control over myself. I didn't have control over my identity. I didn't feel like I could express who I authentically was, and sometimes I felt like I didn't even know who I was, authentically. It was just a constant battle with my identity. So to replace that control, I found other unhealthy ways to cope with it. So at this time, I was like, listen, I gotta find a way to assimilate in society. Every part of my aesthetic presenting as a woman was literally just pieces of other women that I had seen, because I had no idea how to be a woman. And I always have to reiterate, because people will say, there's not one way to be a woman. And I agree. But when your brain literally develops as male from when you were in utero, you really don't know how to be a woman. It's a little harder. I literally was so deep into this research of how to be a woman that I started analyzing what the majority of men's, preferences were. When it comes to me anyways, I guess. And I was able to determine that it was more preferred if I had straight blonde hair, I was 165 to 168 pounds, and minimal makeup. And honestly, I thought I got this down pat. There was only one issue. And deadass, no offense to anybody who's watching this that I dated during this time, because it's no reflection of you. It's definitely a me issue. Presenting as a woman, oh my god, it was so bad with cis men. I was so uncomfortable. I know this sounds totally asinine, but I literally convinced myself that no woman in this world actually likes being intimate with cis men. They just look to it as a chore, because nobody really likes it. That was my view. That made more rational sense for me, that maybe something's not right here. And I know a lot of you are thinking, well, that means you're just a lesbian. No, it doesn't. I like dudes too, but being intimate with a cis man as a woman is much different than being intimate with a cis man or any man, as I am now. Very different experience. But anyways, I tried the majority's theory again just to see how it would go. I started presenting as a masculine lesbian, I dated women, and I really tried to suppress any of the identity stuff I was facing. I mean, but people were starting to wonder. For instance, like, I remember hitting up one of my friends who is a trans man, and I asked him about getting top surgery, and, I told him about how I was interested in it. And he's like, but aren't you a lesbian? And, like, he thought that was kind of odd, I think. But I think I just changed the subject. Then I remember, like, one of my friends, their son, who is also a trans dude, she was, introducing him to me, like, showing him pictures of me, and he's like, are you sure that's a chick and not a trans guy? She's like, no, that's a lesbian. And he's like, okay. But it wasn't until I was getting to know somebody. We were in like the early stages of dating. And when I presented as a lesbian, I was a touch me not. And what that means is basically like I didn't want anybody touching me or anything. Well, somebody that I was like in the beginning stages of dating, getting to know, they made a comment about my chest. It makes me want to cringe even thinking about it now. It took everything in me not to go ballistic. Everything in me. So I cut it off with them, yes, over that. To this day, if I had contact with that person, it would just, no. And it's not like a big deal. They were trying to compliment me, but it was just, I had such bad dysphoria that it was like just disgusting and dehumanizing to me. Even, they didn't mean it that way. But that was one of the, ways I knew, okay, like it's time to just bite the bullet. It's time to look into transitioning. And I know a lot of people are gonna, be like, oh my god, you decided to transition over that. No. On paper, I've been in therapy for gender dysphoria since '08. So this was something I was working on for a long time and having severe issues with. And I wasn't able to just boom, go on hormones. I'm bipolar, so I had to go through, some extra screening. I had to, they wanted to make sure the hormones didn't, kind of incite a manic episode. So I did have to wait a little bit longer. So it wasn't like I got access immediately. But I ended up medically transitioning. I have had top surgery. I just chose to leave fat butt, just so nobody freaks out. And I was on hormones for a little under 3 years, I believe. Then I ended up going to the ER one day from some respiratory thing. When I was at the hospital, they did blood work. They saw that my enzymes were very high, and it was indicative of my liver starting to fail. At first, they thought it was hepatitis, but I tested negative, so then they zeroed in on testosterone, and that was the cause. This was one of the hardest times in my life, and I've been through some shit, man, but this was rough. I mean, this is what I looked like. I passed consistently every day as a dude, so it was like horrifying to think that my changes might slowly revert. Now, right now, I identify as male. A lot of other people wouldn't identify me as male, but whatever, float your fucking pickle, not my business. But I clearly don't pass. Back then, I wasn't like TikTok famous or anything, and I knew from looking like this and going out in my community as a masculine lesbian, like, it wasn't gonna be easy. Not just that it wouldn't be easy, but it wouldn't always be safe. I've been in some bad situations, like where I come from, because of who I am. I'm not leaving though. I have a right to be here. And so I figured, oh my god, everything's gonna revert. I'm gonna look like this. Oh my god, I panicked and I detransitioned. That's me when I detransitioned the second time. It clearly didn't last long. Nobody really thought it would. But if I ever had to do it again, for safety reasons, job security, if somehow it impacted like my family's like safety and ability to thrive, I would detransition again. I think about it when my family's on the way to do errands and we pass like mobs of Trump supporters in our small little town with signs about how they're so sick of what America's coming to. You know what they mean. I know what they mean. But yeah, that's my story on why I detransitioned twice and retransitioned and why I'd do it all again.